Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Have you ever wondered what games you should sell or you should use? Find out here at Purge Reviews. Find out on our top 10 list what games you cannot miss. Don't forget to subscribe to Purge Reviews.
Monster Mayhem. What I hoped I had here was a family Halloween game. From the back of it, it looks kind of neat. You have all the different characters, you have the miniatures. The board's a little bland, but I kind of pictured this being some kind of mass market game. I think I was wrong. I'll get into why. But I was kind of hoping I had a family-friendly game. The monsters were kind of scary on the front, but it's kind of like in a Monster Squad type of way to me. A little more menacing. But the artwork was just kind of weird. The lady with the piercing should have struck a chord with me, but I don't look a lot. And if I would have looked around the back, I would have found the pimp on the back, but it could have just been a disco guy for all I knew. What I found inside, before we jump into the mechanics of the game, is crack whores and back slapping pimps and disco. You can take those out if you want, but they're in this box. And there's some questionable things that I wouldn't want my kids to be around. I took those out, or I would take those out if I was going to keep it. I'm not. I'll get into why. But the game itself is just kind of this roll and move type of thing. A little bit more complicated than that. Not much. But they threw in these characters that you probably don't want your children to be around, like prostitutes and whores and pimps and things like that. There's a crack whore in the game. I'm not sure you want your children to play crack whore. So you can take those cards out, and then the game is fine, but they're in the box. Now, what kind of game do I have here? It's a roll and move. The board is very bland, has hexes on it, and you're rolling around. You're playing the monsters, which all have unique powers, which is kind of cool. I can see what they were going for here. You roll, move, and you catch these people that you want to catch, and you get craving points or victory points for doing so. You can also fight the other monsters, but it's all kind of boring. So my stalking or movement is 3, so I roll 3 dice and I move the highest number. If I get somebody, I roll my craving score on them or whatever, and it's 2, so I roll 2 dice and I keep the highest. Not very interesting, very antiquated system. Now, this game was $45. First time I looked at the back of a White Wolf Game Studio. I don't see a year printed on it really quickly, but it just seems extremely dated now. The game just seems very bad. It does have some neat miniatures in it. I kind of like where they were going with it. If I was in the business of taking an old game and making it new, this is one that I would look at. I know it's a new company, so if they ever get around to looking at my videos, this is a game that I would kind of get with and clean it up, make it more family friendly, and add more to it. It just comes from an antiquated era. So this is not a game I'm going to be able to keep or recommend to you. But it might be a funny lark on a Halloween. I think I was playing Halloween to play Zombicide or maybe Last Night on Earth or something like that, or even Fearsome Floors before I would play this. This is not something that I'm going to be into. I don't really like roll and move. But the theme is there, and the miniatures are there. Like somebody plays Dracula, you got a werewolf, a poltergeist, a mummy, a zombie, and they all act a little bit differently. They have different powers, and they want different kind of characters that they're after, and they interact with the buildings differently. So there's some good here, but the bad outweighs it to me, and then the inclusion of the R-rated stuff just killed it for me. And I'm not a prude, but it's a roll and move. So I would play this Halloween game with my children or family. So the weight of the game doesn't match the thematic choices they made inside of the theme, to me. This may be right up your alley. If somebody likes to play Munchkin and that's like the game for them, maybe something like this would be okay if they're okay with roll and move and they want that kind of humor, but I don't want to censor the game. It just doesn't match the mechanics. That's all for me. So this is going to be a purge for me. I'm not going to keep this game, although I do love the miniatures that are in the box. Here are the components for Monster Mayhem. It's got that kind of, I feel like, appealing mass market kind of box. You got the goals there, no sign of what we're going to find inside this box. Maybe that, and that's only if I'm being a little judgmental. But there's going to be some questionable material in here, so let's take a look. You are going to have a rule book that looks more like a newspaper. Some of the smallest print you'll ever find. The organization, I guess, is there. It's just really hard to find. Not a very easy read due to the font. Can you imagine that? It is what it is. Let's take a look at what the insert looks like. It's pretty good. You have a space for everything. Now I'm going to set it aside, and we're going to come back to that. But I want to show you the board first. You are going to get a giant board. There's no way I'm going to get it all in focus, but what you're going to have here is you're going to have some places for cards that you can put there. And these are just hexes, and you're going to put tiles out on the board that will kind of maybe make up the city, if you will. Let me see if I can get it to lay flat here. It's a very boring looking board. There are some buildings that you can see maybe that are in the background there. Can you see those? But once you put tiles and everything, you won't be able to notice it. Let's take a look at what else is in here. So these are the tiles. They're actually fairly well made. The artwork is questionable, but it's the different areas, the sewers, the military base. He's just going to represent the different places that will be found on the board. You will have a number of event cards. The backs are purple, so they look a little bit different than the black ones. There's not going to be any artwork on them. He's going to see words. So here's a frat boy. You ensure a random prey of opportunity. Gain 1 craving point for 8 or fewer points. So these, you found a frat boy to eat. Familiar turf. So these are just events that will occur in the game. Then you're going to have some escape cards, which, let's see what we have here. There you go. And they're going to be black with a different shape, but the same kind of outline. And these are just going to have numbers and colors on them. If you're colorblind, I'm sorry. I don't see any way to differentiate this. Not that you'd ever want to play this game anyway. Then you're going to have some victim cards. And this is where the game kind of takes a left turn for me. So, Hyper Bike Messenger, okay. Bling Flashing Player. Maybe a racial stereotype, but this kind of stuff doesn't bother me. A Buxom Coed. Ooh, okay. I don't use language like this, but a Smart Butt Street Kid. Okay, a Crooked Bee Cop. I'm okay with that. A Backhanding Pimp. No, the kind of game you want to play with your children, right? And I say that because this game, the style of the game, the flow of the game, you'll see it is a family type of game. I can't imagine a bunch of 17, 22-year-old guys here on playing this. Petty Paper Pusher. A Crazy Vagrant, Snooty and Major D. Alright, let's get to some of these good ones that we have a problem with. A Brooding Goth. Okay. Peter Labner, a Leering Janitor. Why has he got to be leering? Why has he got to be a predator for? Okay, it's kind of funny. Prima Donna Art Critic, a Gossipy Senator. Ex-Addled Raver. I don't even know what that means. That's some kind of... Is that when that trend was where teenage girls would wear pacifiers? I can't remember. Okay, what else we got here? Sharp-tongued Waitress, Double-dealing Politicians, Frazzled Student, Staggering Barfly. So the lady that's easy to take home from the bar. An Absent-minded Professor. Hardened Crummy, Sneering Bouncer, Strung-out Crack Whore. That's the other one I was looking for. You know, nothing says desperate like a strung-out... Not even a crack whore. She has to be a strung-out crack whore. And she can't even be a strung-out crack user. She has to be a whore on top of it. Hottie Blue Blood, Square Gold. So you can see that a lot of these are not, I got only through, maybe not the most PC, maybe not what you're looking for with your family. Here's the character sheets. They are humongous. This game takes up a lot of space on the table. You're going to have a vampire. Everybody's going to have different kind of stats up and different power and weakness that they have. So you got a vampire you can play with. You've got a zombie. And this is kind of the neat part because you pick one of these guys and you're that. So the werewolf, and it'll kind of play like that. And you have a poltergeist, and you have a mummy. So let's go through it again. You have a mummy, a vampire, a zombie, a werewolf, and a poltergeist, and they all kind of act a little bit differently. And this is probably these 5 are probably the best thing about this game. And then you're gonna have all these little chits and miniatures. Let me pull out some of these miniatures for you. So these are wonderful. It's a werewolf. Okay. Here's the mummy. I mean, these look good. I mean, I don't think this is like a cheaply produced game. Here's the zombie. I mean, these miniatures could have been cardboard or chits or something. There's a poltergeist. I mean, you do have the chits and they're okay. This is all like the NPCs that you're running to. You get some nice little dice with it. I like these dice. They're very cool looking. Green. They roll great. And these little trackers that you use are really small, but they fit on the little play areas that you have. It's just, I don't know. But those are components. I would actually say the cards are nice. These tiles are a little bit lacking of artwork. On the cards, there's some lacking of artwork, but it's functional. And the board is boring, but the miniatures are nice. The cards are good quality. The tiles are fine. Everything works. That's Monster Mayhem's components. The rules in this are a complete mess. They're black and white. It's so wordy. It's long. It doesn't, I mean, this needs somebody to come in and just streamline this. It could be so much better than what they did. The rules are a complete mess. They're long, boring, repeat themselves. It's just not good. And I'm reading it, I'm like, do I know how to play this? Why don't they just put this down into 4 words? So if this was a good game, I think that I might have written up like a player aid or something that just made it a lot easier than what it is, because it does not need to be this long, boring, and text heavy. So absolute miss for me. Now, I'm not going to show this whole game because there's a lot of little rules to it and it's not that interesting. But at the beginning of the game, you'll each pick a character, whoever you want to be, and you'll have a number of craving points. Everybody's going to start out with 5. Keep in mind that you're going to have different stalking, capturing, fighting, and you'll have different powers and weaknesses that will help you out. So each of these guys are going to play differently, and that's a huge plus to the game. And then what you'll do is everybody will draw 3 victims. And you can get any victim you want. You will just score more points if you get the 3 victims. So I got the middle manager, the disgruntled butler, and the spoiled debutante. So that will. And then what you'll do also is these will come out on the board. I'm just randomly putting these out here. But you'll put these 20 tiles out on the board, and they will signify buildings that you'll go to. And now you'll have your miniatures that will start out on the board too. And I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit how this works. The first thing you're going to do is everybody's going to roll for initiative. You're going to roll 1 6-sided die. I happen to roll 6. Start out the game with 5 craving points. You add however many craving points you have. I would have 6 because I rolled it, 5 because I start the game with 5 craving points, and I would be 11. Highest roll goes first. That's how initiative is worked out. So the first thing you do is, if you have the first initiative, let's say, you'd look at your 3 victims and you'd pick one. So I'm going to move the middle manager just to illustrate how this works. And you'd go around the table. I would do one, then you would do one, they do all the one, and I can move another one. And all you're doing is moving these characters around the board. You draw the top card of the escape deck, 1 yellow. There's a little thing that here tells you which direction yellow's in. So then I would move him yellow 1 space. So my guy would move. I get to move the guys that I control, which are these guys who score me more points. So that's the first thing you do is everybody's going to take a turn and move all 3 of their people 1 at a time. The next thing you're going to do is you're hunting. And if you look here, each character has a different stalking. And stalking just means how many dice you're going to roll. So if I was the zombie, I'd roll 1 die. For the werewolf, I'd roll 2. And for the poltergeist, I would roll 3. So let's just pretend for a moment that I'm going to roll 2 dice. and I rolled a 2 and a 3, I would choose the larger one, 3, and that's how many spaces I can move. 1, 2, 3. That's how many hexes I can move on the board. So if you ever land on a space with a person, that the chits, you're going to roll your capturing. That's how many dice you roll. So in this case, if I was the zombie, I would roll 3 dice. And I would take the highest number I rolled, which is a 6. Now if you look here, I crave brains. So each of the characters will have a brain score. So I'm in this space with the middle manager. So I would roll 3, or somebody else, another person would roll 3 dice and rolled a 5. And because my 6 was higher than his 5, I would get to capture him. Now, if I had been up to the butler, and I create brains, he doesn't have very much brains, so he'd only roll 1 die, and the spoiled would only roll 1. So that's kind of how that works. So in this case, I rolled a 6, rolled a 5. I have consumed the middle manager, and I would generate that much craving to my craving points. Now, that's the main part of the game. Is you're going to be trying to capture people to get those points. You can also, if you're in a space with another monster, you can fight them for 3. There's some rules for that. Keeping in mind, everybody has their own power and weakness. So for the majority of the game, the people move, then you move based on your stalking and try to capture different people to add craving points to you. There's some rules for movement. These different buildings can do different things. I'm not going to get into all that. Those are kind of neat. But for the most part, you're just walking around trying to capture these people. Who should buy this game? I mean, to me, it plays like a family game. I would take those cards out that are questionable with those people. If you don't want your kids knowing about whores and pimps and stuff like that, or crack. And then maybe it's an okay roll and move game. I think there's better games on the market. I think that if I was going to play a game like this, I would just pull out like Last Night on Earth, which is very modular. Although I do really dig the Monster Squad, where you had like the mummy, the zombie, the vampire, the werewolf, and the poltergeist. That was really neat. As opposed to like in Last Night on Earth, it's just zombies. I really liked that aspect of it. I really liked how the individual powers. I just wish there was a better game attached to it. At most, this is a Halloween lark, something you pull on Halloween to just play. I would tell you to go ahead and skip this one if you must try it, track it down. This might even be a hidden gem. I don't know how widely accessible this game is. I just saw it on the geek list. I thought it looked cool with the theme. What the heck, I'll take a chance on it. I don't know if I regret it, but if I had paid $44.99 new for, which is actually printed on the box, I'd be pretty upset with that. So if you're looking for a Halloween-themed game, and you don't want zombies, you want like all the monsters, the universal type monsters, this might be it, because I don't think there's a whole lot like this. But I mean, even like Betrayal of the House on the Hill is better than this. There's a lot better games, but for a roll and move with children, this might be it. And hopefully this kind of helped you in that Halloween theme if you'd want something like this. For me, it's a Purge, absolute mist, will not be keeping it.